of you remember when you became a parent that there were times where you had to choose to be sterner and harsher than you would have wanted to be because it was in the best interest of the child to set really clear limits and be very firm about it? Because when they got too many degrees of freedom, they started doing things that weren't safe. Okay, like a 2-year-old. You know, 2-year-olds can be absolutely lovely, but they can also push the limit, okay? Sometimes what happens when people develop dementia is you actually may get to see the person they would have liked to have been if they weren't in the life situation they were in. So I will tell you, there are some people that people will say, my whole life my dad never said a kind thing to me. He was always too busy working. He never seemed to care how I felt about things. He was always very stern and very rigid. He never did anything nice to anybody. He gets dementia, and he is, hey, sweetheart, how's my favorite girl? Can I have a kiss? You know I love you. And it's just like, where did this man come from? His favorite thing to do, this one particular gentleman I know pretty intimately, he was somebody who would all of a sudden start dancing with people. And he was a very rigid, very staid professional professor, School of Medicine. And all of a sudden when the dementia hit, by about 3 years in, nobody recognized him for who he used to be. On the other hand, I can also tell you most individuals will be more of who they were. So if they were always hard to get along with, the vast majority of people don't change dramatically like that. They can, but they don't always. And so if I've always been hard to live with, don't expect me to suddenly change when I develop dementia, unless what I get is frontal lobe dementia. And frontal lobe dementia robs me of me very early in the disease. The first part that disappears is the part of me that makes me be myself. And so you may find I go absolutely flat, and I don't have a lot of responses. I don't seem to have an emotional sort of thermostat. I'm just flat most of the time. Or I might actually become giggly and silly and not me. But those are rare compared to the people who are who they were a little bit more. Yeah. Somebody over here had a question right there.
Do you have any tips for maintaining your patience so that you can do all of the tips that you've been giving us?
Yeah, maintaining your patience is something that's really hard. The closer you are to the person and the more the person is like they were but not quite, the harder it is. Frequently, the person who's going to have the greatest difficulty maintaining patience is somebody who's known the person a long time and fairly intimately. And it appears to them that the person knows what they're doing because there are moments in the day when the person does know what they're doing. And so what happens is when you have one of those moments, your brain says, see, they do know. And so it's hard to convince your brain, that was a moment. You can't count on that again because the human brain is built on experience. And when it has an experience, it forms connections. So the hard part for us is disconnecting our prior experience and let this moment be what it is. My suggestion is usually by the time people are asking me that question is they are not getting enough downtime away from the person so that they have the energy and the fuel to get through it. Typically, it's not just the person with dementia they're trying to deal with in their life. It's frequently they have other stressors as well. There are other family issues. There may be financial issues. There may be health issues. There are lots of things going on. And so what it's really important to recognize is you need to rebuild your store, and you're not giving yourself a chance to regroup. You are going back into situations that are challenging when you only put a quarter's worth of gas in the car and you're trying to drive 5 miles on a quarter's worth of gas. How far are you going to get? Every time you're going to run out of gas and you're going to find yourself saying, what did I tell you? And you do pretty good up until that moment. You really are using everything you've got though. So my suggestion is have a third person and have that third person start to give you visual cues off to the side. And when you see the visual cues, stop doing what you're doing, back off and breathe. One of the most important messages I can tell you, that backing off and breathing is critical. Unfortunately, when you're in the middle of a situation and you're already stressed out, you are not going to think of that. You just want to get it. I mean, you just can't do it. But somebody else stepping to the side and not saying a word, just doing this, is usually plenty to get your brain to go, oh, okay, I need to do something different. This isn't working. Shake it off. One of the suggestions I would also often make for family members is you need to go do something you really love doing, and acknowledge you need time to go do things you really love doing, because this is not for everybody. There are too many examples in my family's life where we found out that although I am very good at this, I have almost limitless tolerance for a lot of things, and I can actually see value, and I get sort of excited about figuring things out. My mother was not somebody who ever did that. She hated that my grandfather had dementia, and it was really distressing. I will tell you that often a spouse or an immediate down one generation caregiver, it's probably almost 3 times as hard as if you're the jump a generation caregiver. That jump a generation caregiver gives me a chance to have some distance from it, and I can tolerate things that the next generation cannot tolerate, because there's that family history piece that you cannot eliminate. Your brain knows it. Your dad was unfair to you back when you were a teenager. He never let you drive the car, even though you were competent to drive the car, because he needed the car for work. So now you have to take the keys away because he's not safe to drive. And unfortunately, you have a lot of history there that's going to make it very difficult for you to be a kind, supportive person. Because what your brain says is, you know, this is just like when you wouldn't let me drive. And you're trying not to do that, but it's very difficult not to do it. So my message is, look for other people. Because when you're asking me those questions, I will almost universally tell you, you're trying to do too much, too long, with too little. It's almost universal. And caregivers of people with dementia always think you can do more than you can for longer than you can without a break. So that's what I'm thinking. But I could be totally wrong. But I'm doubtful. Yes?
I have a problem when my mom's going back to a different life. She goes way, way back, and she thinks her grandmother's alive.
Yep.
And she thinks, and I don't know whether to correct her and say her,
Watch
then
this.
she wants to know why they're not listening.
Absolutely. Okay, so you be your grandma, or you be your, is it your mom or your mom? You be your mom. Come on up for me. You come up, you be your mom, and I'll be you. I'm going to give you an idea of some ways to do this that might be a little more helpful. Okay, so you do what you normally do.
I don't know why Uncle Frank doesn't look me up. I don't know why he doesn't come to visit.
You're really missing Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
Now, he has always been one of your favorite uncles, has he not?
Well, yeah, because when
Yeah.
he died, he left me his house.
You're kidding me. He left you the house?
Yeah, but I don't understand
Oh
why
my
he doesn't come
God,
see me.
yeah. Now that's amazing. Now what was your favorite part of Uncle Frank's house? What'd you like? Did you used to stay with him?
He played ghost with me down the staircase.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet that was a lot of fun. Did you use a sheet?
Yeah, he used a sheet and a balloon under it.
Oh my gosh, did he
Yeah.
scare you, or was it just fun?
No, it was fun.
Yeah,
It was
now,
fun.
how did you start that game? Did he start it or did you start it?
He started it.
And was it at night or during the day?
It was when I had a girlfriend over. Oh, that's getting weird.
Oh, how funny. Oh, how
Yeah.
funny. So he was entertaining you girls.
Yeah, and it was almost like the house where you were born.
It was almost like that house. You are
two-story
right.
house where you were
Just
born.
like that house. Wow. Those houses, you love houses.
Do you remember that house?
I do remember that house. That was one of the favorite houses,
Do you
wasn't
remember
it?
when we used to go outside and I'd walk you because we didn't have a car?
Because we didn't have the car, and
Yeah.
would you push me
Yeah.
in the thing that I wrote it? Isn't that
Oh,
cool?
Okay.
Here's what you want.
You just agree,
Mom,
agree.
listen to me. That is not the house that Uncle Frank lived in. You know, those are different houses, Mom.
passed away.
He's dead. You just told me. When you inherited the house, what part of he's dead are you not getting? If he's dead, can he come to visit? It was a ghost pretend, Mom. This was pretend. Look at me. Now, is that going to help her? No, and this is where what we're trying to do is make it make sense in our brain. Whose journey is this?
Hers.
Yeah, and are you going to be with her?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just go where she is, because you know what? You can always find your way home. And she's lost.
I always considered it fibbing.
Nope,
And misleading.
it's called go with her flow.
Go with her flow.
You go with her flow. You're trying to make sense of what she has is, there's a memory, there's a memory, there's a memory. Now, these should be 3 separate memories, shouldn't they? But when this disease kills your brain, these 3 memories are shifting together and starting to be connected in ways that are totally illogical to your brain. But because of the dying brain, these brain cells start talking to each other, and her brain literally thinks it looks like the same house. And what I did is I used a lot of your words. I didn't make up many of my words. Did I use any words other than the ones she gave me? No, I used her words, and because I used her words, her brain settled right down, and her distress level went away. And what I was going back to are old familiar memories. And as I had you talk about the ghost and Uncle Frank, you actually expanded on the story a little bit. Because when that happened, I triggered some brain activity, and there was a red spot in your brain for a minute there. And you might very well say, I so miss him. And then you can say, I miss him too, Mom. He is one of the most favorite uncles I think that you ever had.
Yeah. And one other thing about turning off stoves and things, and she knows you turned it off.
Yep.
And remembers every day when you go in
Absolutely.
that you've turned it off.
Well, that's because you're the visual cue. When she sees you, it
I
reinforces to her that you think you're the boss of everything, and you come in here like you've got the right to run my life. What you want to say is, you're right, Mom, I'm sorry. I know it annoys you. I worry about you and I love you, but I know it bothers you. And I'm sorry I had to do it. The doctor said we had to do it. Now notice who I'm putting the blame on.
I did that.
It's perfect, because he doesn't have to live with her. And he's an authority figure. The government says we've got to do this if you want to stay in the house. Well, that's what's going to make sense to her. Not that you would decide to do this against her. Why could you be my daughter and treat me like this? But you're doing it, you want to stand with her, but the government says we've got to. And it's like, well, this is bullshit.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I know it is. I'm sorry it happened. Yep. Yep.